Welcome to Shaken and Disturbed, everybody. I am Father God Daryn Carp here with Mother God, Mommy, and Poppy, John Thrasher.
That
John's
was
doing
my line.
John's doing a, what is, like, yeah, is that a
Yeah, there's like a
superhero? What is that? That is
football
something
thing, like
Heisman kind of trophy
something
in
like
his
that.
hot yellow mayhem in the desert sweatshirt, which I thought was exclusive only to Coachella. Turns out, haha, jokes on us. You can still buy it online. So,
Yeah, but it is because
but
you
it is
got it for
from
me.
Coachella for
Yeah,
me.
you
So,
like I said on NMR, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you can go watch our NMR video. We posted the video this week for everybody. So go, it's $5 a month or even cheaper if you do it annually. Um, I was saying that the sounds and vibrations of Gaga Cella are in this hoodie.
and that is why, because when I told you I came back from Coachella, Nadine and I were dying with our
Yeah,
sinuses and
me too.
allergies.
Yeah.
I think you have
You
to
think that's
wash the
how?
sweatshirt, but I think the reason you're a little sniffle biffle is because you
Yeah.
won't take that sweatshirt off. That's
I
what I
think you
think.
might be onto something. I know there must be some pollen in it. Well, that is a great segue into my PSA today for you guys watching on Patreon or YouTube. I have had horrible allergies that have turned into some sort of mini little cold. I feel fine, but if you're watching the video, I may pop off the video from time to time just to blow my nose and make sure that I don't sound and look ridiculous. So
I would
that's not a
like a
glitch.
million comments of people being like, sounds like you have
No.
post-nasal drip. And we're
Oh
going to
my
be like,
God. Do you remember the
yes.
woman that said that to us?
Well,
Or to
said
me?
it to
Sorry.
you.
No, she
Yeah.
said it to me. Like years ago in Martinis and Murder Guys, we got like, maybe it's one of you guys listening, and I appreciated it, but she was like, love the show. Every week you have me laughing. John, I can hear your post-nasal drip. I hope you're better. I was like, not diagnosing me, but I appreciate the love.
Oh.
That's called some people's love languages,
Well,
not acts of service, but
truth.
truth. Yeah, like telling the truth. Exactly. Exactly.
Oversharing sometimes,
Overshare.
if you will. But
Yeah,
yes, if you go off, just know he's honking his horn
I am.
on his
Yeah.
face, and he'll
Yeah.
come back on, and that's the moment that we get to break away from the case and talk shit about
Oh,
him. But
okay. Fair enough.
John, let's get in to this week's case.
Yes. Okay. So Shauna Tiaffay was born on March 13th, 1966, in Salt Lake City, Utah, where she spent the early years of her childhood surrounded by mountains and family, as
You
did I.
you've been to Salt Lake?
No, I haven't, although I hear that that's one of the best Real Housewives franchises. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
As
I mean,
Andy's assistant?
I think all of them are special in their own way. But
They
yeah, Salt
are.
Lake City. Listen to me, the housewife go to prison for 6.5 years. She's still serving from
Oh,
Salt Lake
shit.
City. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, David Archuleta, also from Salt Lake City. We
Oh,
need to discuss on next week's, and or not Salt Lake City. He might be from somewhere else, but near there. Um, we need to discuss on next week's NMR some David Archuleta updates that I was texting you about.
we do, but I'm about to find out exactly where he's from
Yeah,
because he
find
needs
out
to know if you're going to marry him, you better have these.
like where his family
You
is.
need to
That's a
know
good point.
everything. You know
I
what I mean?
do. I know he's definitely from Utah. I just don't remember.
Oh, good. He was born in Miami, Florida.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, he's not from Florida though. He's
He's
lived in
born in
Utah.
there. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Darren's like,
Oh.
yeah.
His family moved to the Salt Lake City
Okay.
suburb of Sandy, Utah when he was 6.
There we go. That
There we
sounds
go.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
like, you're almost stalker level, but not entirely like, oh, we should report you stalker level. Because there's
I'm just going to
some
say
things that you're not
this.
rolling off your tongue with, which is fine.
I'm just going to say this. Tune into next week's NMR. That'll be a public NMR for news that will blow your minds about what's going on in my life. Darren, this is what we were texting about, if you remember.
Yep.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, I haven't made contact with David. It's just there's something happening involving
Just
David
penis
Archuleta.
contact, not
Other
like
than
verbal.
that,
Other
yeah,
than penis
exactly.
contact, they have not
Yeah.
made contact. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Anyway,
Yep. Anyway,
okay, so Shauna remained in Utah until 1978 when at age 12 her parents both devoted members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
that's
which
why
by
that's
the way,
LDS community, Latter-day Saints community.
LDS, and there is a very prominent LDS community including David Archuleta and his family in the Salt Lake City area. David no longer seems to be a part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. This is not, I'm sorry, I thought I was in a David Archuleta podcast. Oh my
Are
God, what am I
we
doing?
talking about David Archuleta? Is he have
I
anything to
don't
do with
know.
this case? Okay.
So far, no, but let's see how this case
You never
unfolds.
know.
Anyway, they eventually relocated to Broomall, Pennsylvania, a small suburb just outside of Philadelphia. So only 2 years later, the family packed up and moved once again, this time to Northern Virginia, where Shauna later attended both middle school and high school. Shauna quickly settled in and made friends easily, joining the cheerleading squad and becoming known for her bright smile and kind nature, which is something you hear a lot of descriptions in true crime, like her smile lit up a room. But
I
in this
know.
case, it is an interesting point. It is something to mention. Well, from a young age, Shauna had a creative streak. She loved to draw, she loved sketches of flowers, and she would often be found curled up with a book, according to people that knew her very closely. In 1994, seeking new opportunities, Shauna moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, a city known for, of course, its bright lights, big parties, and kind of this maximalism lifestyle there and
Of
entertainment.
course.
Now, Shonda found work as a cocktail waitress at the Palms, which is one of the trendiest casinos in the Las Vegas Strip at the time. Maybe still is. I've never been to Vegas, though. Have you? I'm sure you
Really?
have. Yeah, I've
Oh,
never been.
many times. Many, many, many times. First up, BravoCon is there.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
That's right.
we had our first one. It's going to be there this year, but also just concerts when there was a kid. It's
Yeah.
close to LA, so it's kind of
Yeah,
an
yeah,
easy,
yeah.
you can drive it,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
also like a 40-minute flight. So people just kind of, it's a big concert venue. Like it's super fun.
Right.
I went to go see Pink there
Oh,
like
cool.
a
When
year
she
and a
was doing
half ago.
backflips in the air.
Gymnast, man. She's
Oh
an
my God.
acrobat. It's insane. Anyway.
Have you ever seen the TikTok, not to keep derailing, but have you seen the TikTok or Instagram reel of the Scottish guy telling Pink to get down off of the things, off of the,
No.
he's like, Pink, get down, get down. And you hear him like saying it. It's just so funny the way he says it. And I'm Scottish.
Dune.
Thank you very much. So I can say
Okay.
that.
Oh, okay,
Get
good.
down,
You
get
can make
down.
fun of your own people. Good,
I
good,
can make
good.
fun of my people. Absolutely. Anyway, back to the story. So Shauna absolutely thrived in her new home, and her warm demeanor helped her build solid reputations and genuine relationships with both her colleagues and her patrons. So it sounds like things are going
Life is
well for
good.
this woman. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was during this time that she met George Tiaffay, a local firefighter and EMT who, on paper at least, seemed like a perfect match. Okay, John is waving his white flag, which means he's going off camera for a second
Exactly.
to
Thank you.
give the rest of the podcast up to me, take the reins because he's blowing his nose. So I will continue here. So she meets George Tiaffay, looks great on paper, and like Shauna, George came from a wholesome background. He was handsome, he was well spoken, carried himself. There's speaking
There
of
I am.
handsome and well spoken,
Yeah, hello, I'm back.
back and carried himself with a kind of confidence that made people feel safe. He had even been crowned homecoming king back in high school, where he'd been regarded as both a standout athlete and an all around good guy. I can't remember. Did you guys do homecoming kings and queens?
Yeah, we did. We've never really talked about it. We had a homecoming queen and court
Oh, what does that
where it was
mean?
like a queen and then there were like four
Peasants
like
around her?
runners up. Yeah, that basically like helped her get ready for the big day. I loved all of them. They were all my friends. They were all very nice, wonderful people. So it wasn't like a weird like stereotype really. But in other classes like years prior and after ours, it was like a very competitive,
And
like
they
girls hated each other if they didn't get it.
and they did this at prom.
No, our homecoming queen happened during our homecoming football game, which was
Gotcha.
it was a gigantic, huge thing every single year in my
That would make
town.
sense.
Yeah, we had a big rivalry with the
In movies,
crosstown
it
high
always
school.
I never had it, but in movies, even though it's homecoming king, it always seemed like it
Right.
happened in at
Yeah,
prom.
prom king or queen,
Right,
homecoming.
prom.
It's
Yeah,
usually those things kind of maybe happen at the
we
same
never had
time in
any of that.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy seemed like an all-around good guy, obviously popular in school. Now, the connection between Sean and George was electric. And before long, they were in a serious relationship. I love describing something as electric because it
Yeah.
is exactly a perfect adjective for that kind of immediate spark with someone. And
Spark
when
with
you have
someone.
it, you
Yeah.
know it, and you can't really ignore it, and it takes up your entire thought process.
Did you have that when we first met?
For sure. But I was looking at the person behind you. You thought it was
Oh,
you, but yeah, no, it's the
I
person behind you.
I felt that with you, except I felt like electrocuted. Like I
Yeah,
just felt
right.
like pain and like numb.
And you threw up a little bit.
And
No
I
big
threw
deal.
up. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was fine. My hair was like Marv from Home Alone 2.
That's why you use Trust Me #5. Listen to our NMR
That's
if you want
right.
that.
Available at your
Well,
local CVS.
shortly after they began dating, like obviously electric, like I said, Shauna fell pregnant, and the couple welcomed their daughter Madison into the world. The two got married shortly after Madison's birth, and from the outside, their life together
Yeah,
appeared blissful.
I'm loving this so far. I mean, what's the issue? Where I'm sure we'll get to it, but
Well, of course, everything that looks good maybe up front has a darker side, and behind closed doors, their whirlwind relationship was beginning
yeah.
to unravel. Raising a child wasn't easy, and the strain, emotional, financial, physical, took its toll on the relationship. Tensions rose, arguments became more frequent, and the loving partnership they once shared started to fracture. I can only imagine what being sleep deprived would get you, but on top of just the weight of feeling responsible for another human being, hello, I am responsible for my DOG, for my daughter, puts a lot of stress on me. So I can only imagine having a kid, being young,
Yeah.
all of that tension.
Listen, listen. I recently did a Judge Judy like lip sync on
Binge.
TikTok.
Oh,
Well, binge too, and Instagram. And I have to say, I feel like Judge Judy right now because I'm so tired of us recapping episodes that murder episodes that begin with the tension was strained once the children were born. Like if you're signing up to be a partner to somebody and you're having kids with them, assume it's going to be very difficult. Don't be surprised when it's very difficult. And then don't end up murdering each other over it. Like, hello, owning a child. Hello,
wow.
being a parent to a child.
You're
I
ready
should
to
cut
have
that.
kids
I
for
should cut.
sure. Nope.
I should
We got
probably
to
no,
keep
we'll
it.
leave it in. We'll leave it in.
We'll leave it in.
Being the parent to a child is difficult. Understand that mutually and come to agreements and compromises. By April of 2012, the situation had sort of reached a breaking point with these two. Shauna and George decided to separate. George moved out of their shared home. Their daughter Madison, who was just 8 years old at the time, began splitting her time between her parents under a joint custody agreement. Great.
Okay.
Sounds like everything is working so far.
That can work. You
It
can
does work. I was
co-parent,
one of
but
those
yeah.
people. Yeah, it was totally, as long as both people are on the same page, like my parents were, quite frankly, it's great. You get two Christmases, you get two birthdays. Like it's a lot
Right.
of fun. Anyway, so on the morning of September 29th, 2012, Madison was spending time with her dad when she asked George if they could stop by her mother's house to pick up something that she'd left behind. George agreed. The two drove over to Shauna's home. And as they pulled into the driveway, George immediately noticed that something was off. The garage door was wide open, which was a big red flag for Shauna's place. Shauna was cautious by nature, so it was obviously very unusual for her to have left this garage unsecured. And when they entered the house, nothing could have prepared them for what they found. Lying motionless on the floor of the stairs was Shauna's body.
Mm.
George quickly took Madison away from the horrific scene and called 911. I can't imagine,
I
you
can't.
know,
I
it,
never
it's a
want to imagine something like that. I can't think of anything worse than that.
it's it's a sad reality about life that you may find or discover, a loved one in this scenario, but especially when it's an 8-year-old, like that's really, really tragic.
Yeah, I've had friends that have experienced some stuff like this
Yeah, me
before in some
too.
sort of way, and it's like you don't even know how to support somebody like that through that
Yeah,
emotional trauma.
no.
Like cry, be silent, talk to me, don't talk to me, like whatever it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just it's unimaginable, and
Yeah, it is.
it's interesting how George kind of knew that something was wrong because the garage door was open. I often think
Right.
of myself because I'm such a person of routine. In fact, when I proposed to
Same.
Nadine, I don't know if I told you this, but when I proposed to Nadine, we were coming home and the door was unlocked
Yes, you
because
did tell me about this.
Daryn forgot to lock the door, which we still joke about.
Our
And
friend Daryn,
she
yes.
turned around to me and she was like, "The door's unlocked." And normally, obviously, if this was just a normal day, we're coming home for vacation and the door was unlocked, I would have flipped.
Freaked out, of course.
Freaked out. I would have been like, "Don't open it. Let's call, like
Right.
open it slowly. Let's get someone. Let's get a neighbor. Let's get 911 on the phone as we're opening something." I would have like
Yeah,
really flipped out. But
right.
obviously with this, I knew why the door was unlocked and he had left like an hour before. So I knew that probably nothing really happened. But
Yeah.
I just think of myself as sort of this creature of habit that like Nadine always said, she's like, if I really studied your face, I would have known that you were lying and probably have predicted that there was a
Fair.
surprise here because you weren't reacting how you normally would.
Normally
And
would.
like,
That's right.
thank God I'm a creature of routine because Nadine's going to know immediately when something is wrong with
Yeah.
me, you know?
I've come home once or twice to my door wide open,
Uh,
and it was because I had not closed the door like fully. And because of that, I
was
now
magic.
magic got out one day. Yes, this was only about 2 years ago. I remember wherever I went, I don't remember where it was, but I had just popped out and come back somewhere really quickly. Like maybe I went to get a coffee or something during one of my like work from home days. I can't remember, but I came back and my door was open and he was long gone. And I was like, okay, dead. He's gone. He's clearly been hit by 13 cars. Um, because of course it wouldn't just be one,
And
it would
you
be
just
just
like
like
went
perpetual.
outside and called him
So
or
so I was like looked around for him in the house. I was like, okay, he's not here. He definitely left. As a reminder, he was an outdoor feral cat that ran inside one day to a friend's house, and then we got him all worked out with vaccines, and now he's mine. And I had a hunch. And by the way, I should mention this pro tip, and we'll get back to this story today. I had a collar with an air tag on it, and I was tracking him around the neighborhood. But the way air tags work is they only ping a location if there's an iPhone or an Apple device nearby that it can ping the system through.
huh?
So if you're in the
It
middle
doesn't
of
have
the
to be
woods,
yours. Just has to be anybody's iPhone.
yeah, it uses Bluetooth
I didn't know
technology to
that.
do this. Yeah, it's completely like private or whatever, but it uses everyone's Bluetooth tech to basically go to the Apple
Huh.
servers. Yeah. So that's why if you have an AirTag and you're in the middle of the woods with no iPhones nearby, you won't know the exact location. But I lived in the city where I was living. And
Right.
so I was like seeing him and like I'd go to the end of the street near the alley and then he'd be on the other end of the
So
alley. So I'd
smart to
walk that
put.
way. Yeah. And it is a pro tip. I highly
We
recommend.
have one on
Anyway,
Snooper. Yeah.
good for you. You should, especially in LA. I mean, you would be able to locate precise location in LA because there's so many different devices there. But yeah, I was able to like kind of like finally notice that he was sticking around to one little area. And then, are you ready for this? Do you know the like green ivy that grows, not poison ivy, but like the safe ivy that might
Yeah.
grow up
Goes
the
on
side of
houses.
yeah,
Yeah.
on like the side of a house? My neighbor had a whole like I want to say I don't not a yard, but like a half yard next to their home, like a side wall full of this ivy. And I will never forget being like magic. And then I did the like clicking noise, you know, like
Yeah.
that cats like, and his little head popped up out of the ivy. And I was like,
So you
get
knew he
your
was in, you knew
ass.
he was in that location because you would
I
like
knew he
home.
was in this general location. I was clicking for him, and then he popped his head up out of this like field of
Did he
ivy.
come see you?
Yeah, he came right over. Yeah. And I was like, get your ass in the house right now.
Hi,
You are so
baby.
grounded. Yeah. Anyway,
That's
that's pretty
scary.
much it. Yeah, it
That's
was
scary.
very scary because for a moment, and I lived in a place where there were two streets on either side of my house that could be dangerous. So anyway, he's fine. He's still living. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube or Patreon, he's eating great.
He's eating.
Yeah.
He's got full appetite.
He has a full
Um,
life since then. Yeah.
but
And belly.
yes. Back to the story.
Yes, I know, guys. Sorry. We're on
I
one of those
think
moods today.
no, we are. No, I'm saying that like it would be tragic in a similar way to opening up
Yes.
your door and finding your
Yes.
animal isn't there. A
Yeah.
little bit more so finding this gruesome scene, obviously with the kid there is just unimaginable. And when
Right.
investigators arrived at the scene after they called 911, it quickly became apparent that Shauna's death was the result of a brutal attack. And I imagine because it's probably easy to spot that as opposed to it being a heart attack or choked on something. I imagine those are a little bit easier to spot. So,
Right.
Shauna had suffered 17 vicious blows to her skull with a
Wow.
blunt object, which was determined to be a hammer.
Wow.
Very hard to even
Horrific.
talk about. Detectives quickly learned that just 2 weeks prior, there had been a break-in at Shauna's home, and the burglar had stolen her jewelry and a pair of her underwear. Men are
Creepy.
just
Men are the worst.
now, clearly, the break in was also emotionally motivated,
I
not
was gonna
simply a
say that.
random attack to steal her jewelry and underwear. It's just either the
I,
guy has a fetishization or knows her or something.
And even the hammer, like, that weapon of choice kind of
That's
feels like
emotional.
gruesome and emotional in that regard. Yeah.
Naturally, investigators look closely at George. After all, husbands, ex-husbands, people related to them are usually the
Right.
first suspects. He was both Shauna's estranged husband and, of course, the one who had discovered the body. So he was sort of
Right.
first at the scene. However, George had a solid alibi. He was at work at the time of the murder with plenty of security footage to back him up. Okay. And
Yeah.
upon further investigation, detectives found no trace of physical evidence linking George to the crime scene on the day of the murder and kind of felt comfortable moving on. Now,
Hmm.
this relieved many of Shauna's loved ones, some of whom found it difficult to believe that George, who was an EMT, a firefighter, a loving father, sort of this all around good guy, doesn't mean he was a good husband, but all around seemingly good guy devoting his life to good things, could be capable of something so violent. And then, out of nowhere, investigators received a tip that altered the trajectory of the case.
Yeah, an anonymous caller informed police that a homeless man had been overheard bragging about killing a woman with a hammer. Police were able to identify the man. His name was Noel Stevens, and learned that he had occasionally done some handiwork for George, actually. So there is a
Hmm.
connection with this person. This connection basically cracked this case wide open, actually, inciting detectives to resume looking into George, this time from a different angle. I think we're all thinking, was there some sort of murder for
Nefarious.
hire?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, according to one witness, Noel Stevens had told them that George offered him $5,000 to kill Shauna. Investigators were able to track down security
That's what
footage
a
from,
that's what a life is worth, by the way.
right, $5,000. Investigators were able to track down security footage from a nearby store, which clearly showed George and Noel Noel is what I'm going with,
No,
on a shopping trip together, purchasing a hammer, a ski mask, and black clothing. And remember, as we just mentioned, Shauna was, of course, bludgeoned, unfortunately, to death with a hammer.
that certainly doesn't look great. I often wonder what like hardware people think. Like I'm going there to purchase or I don't know where else you would find all of these. Maybe Home Depot.
Right.
I don't know. A
Yeah.
hammer, a ski mask, and black clothing. It's
What do
like
you,
here's a
duct
rope and a
tape? Yeah.
taser and like
A
black duffel
shovel.
bag. You're like, do I report this? Because none of these
Yeah.
items individually are nefarious, but taken together
I say
are
yes.
sussy. I don't know because that is like what if you're making a Halloween costume,
Of
and then anyone
course.
should just be interrogated? Like,
No,
I
I
don't
know.
think
Maybe
that
not
we should
interrogated.
arrest like thought crimes in this country, because even if they were planning on doing it and didn't do it, right?
Right.
Like, let's say he bought all these things and then backed out last minute.
Yeah.
I mean, does that person deserve to be arrested? Like, I don't know. I
Good
don't think so,
question.
right? Because that's kind of you're punishing thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know
right?
that
And like,
that's
we can't punish act things that didn't happen.
that haven't happened. Yeah.
But if he did it, obviously we know it was premeditated. We would be
Yeah.
able to prove that. But it's interesting kind of to talk
I
about that.
I agree with you. I would say, like, if you're buying all these things, like, maybe there's like some sort, I don't know, because then that's like a personal and privacy thing. I mean, yeah,
I
I
certainly
talked
think it's
myself out of
important
it
to
in my
keep
head.
security footage. And I hate that these
That's a
gas
good point.
stations and these places are like, we erase them after 24 hours. And I'm like, there has to be a way. Some company needs to create just like an infinite cloud
Mm,
that can hold all of this stuff. It's probably
yeah.
a lot of video. It's probably a lot. But like,
Oh, it
if
is.
the
Yeah, I'm
cloud
sure.
exists,
Yeah, like
I
maybe
just like, there's got
if
to be
not
something.
if not 24 hours, at least what? 3 months? I think that's not too horrible to ask.
Yeah, certainly
Anyway,
not 24 hours. It just seems like something that we should be able to solve. Like, why are all security
I
cameras
know. I
shitty
know.
quality and erased
Right.
after 24 hours? What is the point of having the security cameras?
I know. And, especially like when things, I'm thinking about the Luigi Mangione case. He's being charged with potentially killing that CEO. And like he
Right.
was on the run for a good long time and he did it right in the middle of Manhattan. Like, how could they not like track down all the footage it
It's
took
crazy.
to find him immediately? But anyway, if
Before we
that's
continue, though, I just
really
want to
him.
say
Yeah.
that if George did do this, before I move on, if George did
Yeah.
do this, I mean, to have his daughter witness the
Witness
discovery of
it.
that is like an extra level of depravity.
Of
Let's continue the
fucked up.
case.
Yes. Well, when police finally located Noel's makeshift campsite, remember he's the homeless person that was working for George and potentially a participant in this situation. When they finally located that makeshift campsite on the outskirts of town, the evidence that they found was very damning. Detectives recovered bloody clothing, some of Shauna's personal
Oh, well,
belongings,
that's yeah.
and of course, the hammer that was believed to be the murder weapon. Now, both George and Noel were arrested. George ultimately faced 7 charges, including murder, conspiracy, burglary, and robbery charges with weapon enhancements on each of those charges. So, even though he may not have been the one that actually has done it, we're about to find out the final details here. He was certainly a huge part of this, as we can
Yeah,
see.
because right now all we really know is this homeless
Yeah,
guy's sort of related
has
to
the
George in a way,
evidence.
and he's
Yeah,
saying this, but there's not really anything other than his word to tie him to George.
right.
Now, Noel was set to go to trial for Shauna's murder just 4 months after his arrest. However, he agreed to testify against George in exchange for a plea deal. Noel's account was chilling, okay? He admitted to accepting George's offer to kill Shauna in exchange for $5,000 in installments.
So not even
Noel
up all of it up
Noel
front.
accepted an upfront deposit of $600, and George's promised to pay $100 a week until Shauna's life insurance policy paid out, at which point George would
Mm,
pay the rest in a lump sum.
there it is.
You have to be so desperate to be like, okay, yeah, I'll take a life for $100 a week,
Yeah, well, if
essentially.
you're unhoused or homeless, yeah, I would see that being lucrative.
And after the shopping trip with George, Noel waited outside Shauna's home until she returned from work. He attacked her as she opened and walked through her front door.
Hmm.
Quote, she asked me, why am I doing this? He recounted, quote, I don't say anything. I hit her in the head and she hits the floor. I hit her until
Hmm.
she don't move no more, end quote. And Noel claimed that he
Tragic.
beat Shauna so ferociously that the hammer's handle snapped.
Ugh.
So he continued the attack using just the metal head. But I wonder why, like, he had to do it that way. Like, obviously, he overpowered her by 17 times. Like, maybe he's not smart enough to realize that she was probably already dead, even though he was
Yeah, that's
beating
what
her.
I
But,
was
like,
thinking. Yeah.
why so violently? You
Yeah.
know, like, I don't understand that. I guess during the trial, prosecutor Di Giacomo asked him, who told you to kill Shauna? And without hesitation, Noel replied, George did.
And as part of his plea agreement, Noel was sentenced to 42 years in prison. I don't know what kind of plea agreement that is, or arrangement,
Well,
excuse
probably
me.
was,
Better than life,
life.
right? Yeah. George Tiaffay continued to maintain his innocence, however, throughout his trial. However, the mountain of evidence against him was incontrovertible. He was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, the judge didn't mince words. Quote, my sentence today is not based upon holding you to a higher standard, he said to George. Quote, my sentence is based on the fact that this was just pure evil, end
Yeah.
quote.
Yeah. And I wonder again, like, why did Noel have to do it that
Yeah,
way?
it's
Why
gruesome.
seven? Yeah, just absolutely fucking gruesome. And then for George to know that and then
And to
have his
bring the
daughter
daughter
walk in
there,
there, and then that kid just loses 2 parents.
yeah, and has to deal with the trauma of seeing the result of that, you
Right,
know?
exactly. Just
I feel like this guy's so fucking
horrendous.
stupid that he probably um thought, "Oh, well, if I bring my daughter, then I clearly can't be me. I would who what father would ever do something like that?" So I could see that being a part of it there for
Just so
lack of a better
sad.
thing. Yeah, it is very sad. Let us know what you guys think about this episode. What do you think about this fucking maniac? You can hit us up at J Thrasher and Carpe Daryn. Hit us up in our Facebook group, and of
Of
course,
course, of
of
course,
course, you can join us
of
on.
course.
Of course, you can join
Join us every
us
week.
over on Patreon. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, let's get into listener shout outs.
Okay, I'll
Clearly the
start.
congestion is getting to me, so
I'll
take
start because you've
over.
lost your mind.
Thank you.
Tegan in our Facebook group listened to our Black Dahlia case from last week and wrote, I read Steve Hodel's book and he makes a strong case for his dad being killer. I'm convinced. I actually wrote back to that comment and
Yeah,
said,
you
I
did.
agree. That's why that book is really so excellent. And, obviously he's not trying to exonerate his father. He's basically saying, like, I'm his son. I have every reason in the world not
Yeah.
to want to convict my father and find my father be fucking evil. And yet
Right.
he's a
Listen to me.
retired detective basically saying, like, here are the facts laid out of this case. I think it's going to be hard for me to argue against it being my father. And so it is very interesting. Obviously, the father is dead now, hence the reason he could probably write that book.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's never going
He's
to get justice, Elizabeth Short.
Daryn has mentioned, or yeah, you've mentioned Daryn, a few that this person has written a few books. The one you read was called Black Dahlia Avenger, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just for anyone listening who wants to know what we're talking about there. And please do go back and listen to our Black Dahlia
See if I have
episode.
it on here.
Yeah, see if it's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I'll go on to our next one here. Our longtime friend and listener, Mitz, we love you, Mitz,
Minutes.
messaged on Patreon, Daryn, and she said, quote, Daryn, could you please clone Snoopy for me? I just can't deal with her
It's
cuteness.
really insane. In fact, right before we recorded, I
Yeah.
sent John a new photo to put up instead of
Yeah,
this
we're
one,
gonna
even though this
update.
one is like zooby cute.
Yeah, it
This was when we
is.
first got her, and now we have an update on her being more fluffy. It is just, even John like gasped, like
I
audibly
mean,
gasped when he opened the photo. It's just
I did
insane.
audibly gasp because I've seen so many dogs, of course, and this type of dog or this breed of dog, but she is just like there's something about her face that is just unbelievably
You
cute.
just want to eat it, and
Yeah, you
you
just
don't
want to
even know
eat
why, but you're
it
like, put some mustards, put some ketchup on, let's
and
go.
eat this little
Wrap
hot
you in a
dog
little bacon, and let's go. I'm
and
gonna
let's
eat you
get it
right now.
going. Right,
Yes.
exactly. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, but I don't feel that way about cows. It's not like when I see a cow, I'm like, "Ooh, I want
Well,
to eat you," and I actually do eat
and
cows.
you
So that's
do eat
what's
beef.
so
Yeah, that's true.
odd.
Damn. Well,
Something to think about.
there you
Anyway,
go.
guys, early access to our episodes, our videos, and exclusive pics and updates are waiting for you on Patreon. In fact, we put
That's
up the
right.
video of our NMR for our patrons from this
Hello.
past week, so you're missing out on a lot if you're not getting it there.
Yeah, it's for as little as $5 a month or cheaper if you go annually. You can get tons of bonus content. And as we've mentioned before, your support directly supports the show. We put a lot of effort into the show. We have little bills to pay here and there to make this show happen. So all of your support really goes a long way. So thank you so much for considering. Daryn, where can they do
Absolutely.
that?
And join us at patreon.com/shaken and disturbed. And of course, click the link in our show notes. It's right there. We make it super easy for you.
And of course, it's 2025. So take care and wash not your hair, your sinuses with a neti pot. Yeah,
Oh,
I went there. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Oh.
oh. There you go. By the way, I do a saltwater spray every day in my
Mm,
nose, like Arm& and Hammer salt water, and that like
I
helps. It's like
have
a
that.
saline spray, excuse me, not saltwater, saline
Yeah, the
spray.
saline spray. I've used that to varying success. I'll just put it that way. I
Interesting.
think it might have been causing some dryness in my sinuses.
Oh,
It's a very sensitive part of my body.
well, it's as John says, it's 2025, so please be neat and wipe the seat, and we'll see you guys next week for another riveting case on Shaken and Disturbed.
Bye.